Yinning at Life gang, it's Kimberley Roberts of the SolefulYin brand. I'm here to dish out all things about traditional Chinese medicine, Yin Yoga, reflexology, and of course, I'm here to disrupt your mind. So, thanks so much for pressing play on today's episode. Let's do this. When you learn how to go from burnout to balance, and you realize it's actually simple, you'll be beating yourself against the wall, wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? Why did I allow myself to get to that burnout state? Yin Yoga. Seriously, people, Yin Yoga is one of the simplest ways to shift from burnout into balance. And you can literally do it in like 5 minutes a day. I kid you not, it is actually possible and doable and so easy. Like everybody has 5 minutes a day. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you got going on in your life. If you tell me that you don't have 5 minutes in your day to devote to your own self-care, then you know what? That's a whole other level of conversation that we need to have. Because if you don't have 5 minutes a day to devote to yourself, I guarantee you are already burnt out. There is no way that you are in balance. And I say that because we're just a human being with a broad spectrum of emotions that we experience in this life. Things happen, right? Sometimes things that we can't even control. And the reality is that we need tools in our toolkit to deal with everyday life and what happens. And when we don't have those tools, we can quickly shift into burnout. And I think a lot of us were already in that phase, or at least en route to that, well before the pandemic even hit. And then when the pandemic hit, that was kind of like a benchmark for some people to wake up and realize, oh my God, have I ever got to shift things? Like my life is out of control and I'm not taking care of myself. My health and my well-being are suffering. And then after the pandemic, kind of like, I'm going to use the word, we settled into it, right? And now we're looking at like 5 years later, and now we have a whole other set of things to be stressed about. And I'm not going to talk politics here at all, because this episode's not about politics, but just what's happening in this world right now has now shifted people into yet another state of burnout. And if they weren't burnt out before, they're certainly burning out now. Like that's what's happening. And again, it's because people don't have tools in their toolkit. And they're just literally going day by day, numbing out and hoping to get to the end of the day, still standing up, and then just going to bed and crashing and getting up the next day and doing it all over. And this just becomes the cycle. And the cycle has got to stop. Because if you want any kind of quality of life, you have to devote some time for yourself. Now, self-care looks different for everybody. So this isn't to preach that it has to be Yin Yoga, okay? Yin Yoga, breath work, acupressure, meditation, reflexology, those are my tools. And those are the tools that I teach. And some of those tools resonate with some of my students and my clients, and some of them don't, and that's okay. I will tell you one really simple little secret about self-care. Find something that works, that doesn't feel like it's a lot of work for you. Because I'll tell you that if you have any kind of resistance around a self-care tool, you're not going to be motivated, which means you're not going to do anything, and nothing's going to change, and you're going to just stay in that state of burnout. And we also know that burnout isn't just physical. Like, it's not just like I'm burnt, like we use that term all the time, right? I'm burnt out. Like, it's such a almost like cliche statement now, like I'm burnt out. But burnout on a physical sense, it's not just the exhaustion or the mental fog or confusion, but it's also like adrenals, like too much cortisol and adrenaline pumping through the body constantly to keep us out of, flight or fright state. It's the, waking up at 3 a.m. because we're so stressed that our liver is picking up that energy and it's waking us up. Because if you know anything about traditional Chinese medicine, and I talk a lot about the liver in a lot of my episodes, so you can go and take a look. I've got a really good one. It's called Is the Liver Fucked? And the liver is like our commanding general of our body and our mind. So it filters everything, just like it filters everything like on a physical level, right? It's a big detox organ. It's also a big mental and emotional detox organ. And so when we've got these high levels of stress and we're burnt out and we're not taking care of ourselves, that organ picks up all of that and it puts an extra strain, an extra load on it. If for any reason other than just to support good liver health, you need to do everything you can not to burn out. And it's funny, I have an episode that's from way back and at the beginning, and it was the reason why we need to calm the F down. And some of my students had responded back to me and they said, oh, I thought this was an episode about calming down in our mind. And I was like, yes, but I said it's also the reason why we need to calm down is because our liver doesn't like it when we're super stressed out. It doesn't like stress because stress creates resistance in the liver, and the liver loves like this beautiful dance of just flow and ebb, and then ebb and flow, right? Like that's what it loves. But when we've got tons of cortisol pumping through our body, adrenaline levels are high, other stress hormones are kicking in, and we're like super exhausted, that liver is like exhausted and burnt out too. And you can't live if you don't have a liver. It's like an organ that we absolutely need. You could live with one kidney, one lung. You can live without a spleen and a gallbladder. You can even live with a partial, colon, but you can't live without a liver. So getting back to burnout and how to start to shift out of it, because I know what it's like to be burnt out. Believe it or not, you're probably sitting there thinking, how do you know what burnout's like? Like, you have all these self-care tools, you teach all of that, you preach it all. But you know what? For a long time, I lived with an alcoholic and I was constantly burnt out because I was so stressed and so worried and so scared every single day. And I just became like a walking zombie. Like literally, I was just a walking zombie. I had no real feeling. It was just like moving from day to day, just trying to get through the end of the day. and then crawling into bed and just literally passing out, so exhausted. And then, a couple hours later, waking up wide awake and going, it's 1 a.m. I can't sleep. And it was just all the stress that was sitting in my liver. And because I wasn't engaging in enough self-care time, like my body just, it wasn't even just my body, but my body and my mind, but my nervous system got used to this really dysregulated state where most of the time I was in flight or fright, and I would have these tiny little moments of like parasympathetic, beautiful juiciness. But then literally, like, it could be a couple of minutes later, like I'm so blissed out, I'm so relaxed, I'm so calm. And then bang, something happens and I'm right back into flight or fright. And it's because I never learned how to properly, and this was years ago, I never learned how to properly take care of myself. And it wasn't really until I moved out, was living on my own, was away from that marriage, and then I got really sick. And you can listen about my episode about my healing story. It talks about my massive health crisis in 2022. And it was kind of like my wake-up call, because I knew if I kept going the way I was, avoiding emotions, not spending enough time on myself, I was already burnt out. I knew I was on the road to something even more drastic, even more serious. And I realized with that diagnosis, it was like the universe coming to me and saying, hey, this is not how you're meant to live. Things need to change. So here's a little opportunity, a little calibration moment for you to change, to take back your health, to reclaim it, and to start spending more time nourishing yourself. And I'll tell you, at first, it felt kind of awkward. It almost kind of felt even like I was faking it and trying to convince myself that what I was doing was working. But then eventually it got easier and it got easier. And the more time I spent, the more I started to see things shift. And even some days were like literally a 5-minute check-in. One of my favorite things to do now is I will just sit for 5 minutes with my eyes closed. I'll pause and I'll breathe. I love to breathe in through my nose for 3 counts. I hold it for 2, and then I breathe out for 5. And there's just something so powerfully profound, calming, and grounding about that. And it's so simple. And at first, I would get really distracted. I'd get fidgety and irritated. But I kept with it. And the more often I kept doing that practice, the easier I started to find it. And the quicker I was able to drop in and shift out of the external world. And some days that is my practice. I will pause like 3 or 4 times a day for 5 minutes, and I'll just breathe, my eyes closed. Like, I know everybody has 5 minutes, at least 5 minutes. Heck, even if you're so exhausted and you crawl into bed, you could have 5 minutes there. 5 minutes just to breathe. Breathe in for 3, hold it in for 2, and breathe out for 5. We as humans, we make self-care so complicated. We overanalyze what we should be doing, how much time it should be, what we think is effective, when in reality, for some people, 5 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day is like what works for them. For some people, it's 30. Some people, it's more than that. Some days it might be 5 minutes, and then the next day it might be 30. But it doesn't matter the length of time. It's the consistency that you're looking to create. Okay. Like that's the important part, is the regular intervals of pausing. Because when you pause, it's an opportunity for your nervous system to decompress and for it to self-regulate. Okay. So then it knows, all right, we're pausing now. This is a good thing. We know nothing bad happens here. This is safe. And so this beautiful compound effect happens after a bit of time where the nervous system goes, yeah, we're really kind of liking this. Let's have more. But if you're not giving yourself those regular intervals, then your nervous system never gets an opportunity to decompress and reset. And I mean, we all know we need a parasympathetic state and we need the sympathetic state. We need both. But if you want to shift from burnout into balance, the fastest way to do that is to take time every single day for yourself. And maybe that 5 minutes is just closing your eyes and breathing in and tuning out the world. I invite you to give that a shot. It's going to be a little challenge for you that I'm putting out. I want you to spend 5 minutes a day just breathing and focusing on yourself. It doesn't matter when you do it, first thing in the morning, afternoon, evening, I don't care. Just try it. Promise me that you're going to give yourself that gift, because you got one chance in this thing called life. And you owe it to yourself, and you are worthy and deserving of having great health, of having an incredible life. So take the time every day. Your body will thank you for it. Your mind will thank you for it. Your nervous system will thank you for it. And if you want to dive in with yin, I mean, yin is a beautiful practice because we're pausing for minutes at a time in a pose in stillness. I'll tell you, the liver loves movement, but it also loves that stillness, that time where we're just still and quiet. And so yin is, for me, I find one of the simplest, aside from breath work, but I love to incorporate breath work in with my yin practice because it really does amplify the stillness and it takes away the fidgeting and the rattling and the over racing mind. And yin is not about just getting flexible in your body. It's also about getting flexible in your mind. And you need both. The mobility is great too. And the easing of, joint pain and stiffness, aches and pains, that's great too, especially as we start to age. But I think for a lot of us, as we start to age, the light bulb over the head goes off And we start to become aware of what needs to shift. Like, I don't like how things are in my life right now. And I don't like the way my health is. And the only person who's going to change that is you. So don't be intimidated to try yin if you haven't already. I'll tell you that from a Chinese medicine perspective, if you really want to focus on shifting from burnout, like especially if you have physical burnout, is to nourish the kidneys. In Chinese medicine, the kidneys are considered your foundational organs of vitality, of longevity, of quality of life, and your adrenals, which are what manage your stress, right? They sit right on top of your kidneys. So doing yin poses like back bends and forward bends, right? That compress and decompress the kidneys. And then, poses that activate the inner thighs where the kidney meridian channel runs. Like those are great poses. I mean, you can find tons of those on my app, on the SolefulYin app. I have a whole section on supporting organ health with Yin Yoga. And the beautiful thing about if you're in burnout often, for a lot of people, includes fear. And fear is the emotion that our kidneys hold. So by practicing yin and focusing on nourishing the kidneys, not only are you doing the kidneys some physical benefit, right? But there's also the mental and emotional benefit of releasing the fear. But then there's also the energetic component to it as well, right? And allowing that kidney meridian channel to flow properly and easily through the body as it's meant to. And then that's what helps us dissolve the fear and release the chaos and nourish the kidneys and live a longer, healthier life. So the adrenals love yin. So start to include some back bends like supported bridge, sphinx, seal. Like those are great poses. Forward bends like caterpillar, dragonfly, butterfly pose. Like seated butterfly is probably one of the best poses to do because it stimulates so many different channels. But with the forward folding, it really helps to decompress and calm the nervous system. And one other piece of advice that I'm going to give you, if you're going to try yin to help you go from burnout to balance, is that be compassionate with yourself. This isn't a quick fix. Make sure that when you're practicing that you're supporting your body properly with props so that you're not creating a physical resistance that's just aggravating things. And just know that you didn't get to burnout in a day. It's often a compound effect. So to go from burnout to balance isn't going to be a day either, okay? Like it's going to take some time. So be compassionate, be kind with yourself, be gentle with yourself, and just keep going. Just keep doing it, even if it's 5 minutes a day, because 5 minutes a day is better than an hour once a week. Just think of the compound effect that's happening in your nervous system. It's like you're building your nervous system up with these little hits of decompression, constant hits of decompression. That's what you're looking for. Once a week isn't going to cut it when you're burnt out. And at the beginning, you might find more seems too much. So that's why starting off with maybe 5, 10, or 15 minutes a day can seem less overwhelming and taxing, not just to your mind, but also to your nervous system. But I'll tell you that if you give it a good shot, you will start to feel yourself shifting. You'll start to feel better. You'll start to feel more calm, at peace, grounded. Your body will feel more at ease and less tense. And the best part is you'll feel so much more connected to yourself. And there is so much power in being connected to yourself. Because when you are, that's when you can notice when things are shifting, especially when they're shifting in a way that you don't like. And you have that powerful awareness at that point to go, wait a minute, I'm sliding backwards here, and this is not where I want to go. I want to go forward. So give yin a shot. Include some breath work with it. It is in itself a beautiful meditative practice. And it's more than just a physical stretch. It's also a stretch for your mind and your emotional state. And it's an opportunity to give back to yourself. So drop me a comment below if you've used Yin Yoga as a tool to help you shift from burnout to balance. And if you haven't, that's okay. You could even comment and just let me know if this episode helped you in some way, maybe just to create a light bulb, an aha moment. I would love to know. So thank you so much for pressing play on today's episode. Here's to creating that yinning at life vibe. Namaste.